Hey team, on today's episode of the podcast, we have the baller, Sarah Levey, founder, CEO of Y7. How was that pose? We make a baller varsity blue bowl, and I learn, as you guys will, how important it is to stay true to your brand and not be influenced by the outside noise. Make sure you swipe up and listen to this one. Sarah Levey, welcome to the podcast, CEO and founder of Y7.
That is me.
That's pretty boss.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think when we talk about, I was just saying earlier, I call it a chief epic officer. I just think that just, for me, sits well. But it's interesting being a CEO of a company that is really involved in wellness like you are, but also like, it's such a new age, and what you have as your team is such a millennial centric, but also, I guess,
Totally.
how do I put it? It's a very functional, boosting, positive brand you have.
Thank you.
So you don't want to look like a dictator in a way, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting space just in general, right? Because I have my corporate leadership team that does, the duties of a corporate leadership team.
Like a bureaucratic kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's still, everyone has, their tasks, their goals that they have to do, but at the end of the day, it's a yoga company.
Yeah.
So how do you do both at once, right?
Sure.
Like, things need to get done, we have schedules to adhere to, all of that. There's management of people and teams that has to get done, but we're really working on a way to make it seem still really fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And easy.
100%. I mean, the culture is huge, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to touch base on culture. We're going to talk about what it's like to be in your position of now, I think, was it 16 different studios? 14, which we'll get to 16 at some point, for sure.
But, stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Because in the next couple months, probably.
100%. But let's start off the podcast talking about Sarah, because you didn't start in yoga, I guess, right?
No.
You started in fashion.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what talk us through that a little bit.
Sure. So I was working in fashion for about 6 years. I started off as a sales assistant, went from that to an account executive, and worked my way up to a brand manager. So by the time I left to do Y7 full time, I was overseeing 2 of our European brands in a multi-line showroom. So all of that, do you even know what I'm talking about?
No, I've got a pretty good grasp.
Okay.
Sorry. For those playing at home, I'm looking at Sarah with that puppy dog.
Inquisitive.
Yeah.
He's got an inquisitive face.
But I'm actually pretty good at understanding this stuff.
So so what would happen is a lot of big name brands basically, they have a showroom that represents them. Probably 8 to 10 brands in a showroom, and I represented 2 of them. So I was traveling, going to trade shows, and selling the brands to the stores.
You're very, it's interesting. Sarah was here about 45 minutes before this podcast, and I didn't want to disturb her. She was here with a friend, probably after a Y7 session. She comes into Charlie Street eating some food, and she's like, "Hey Dan," in the middle of Charlie Street, and I'm like, okay, I didn't want to interrupt because I just wanted to have her a little low time, but she's here. So someone in your position being a sell, would you say your personality suited the role you're playing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that was my favorite part of the job. At the end of the day, clothes are clothes.
Yeah.
But I really loved being able to talk to more of our specialty stores and be like, this is what the collection means to your client.
Sure.
This is how to bring this collection into your store, how to make it make sense to your client. And really that relationship building, that skill that I had to hone has been really, really impactful for what I do now. And
so with that in mind, you said you transitioned full time. Did you start Y7 whilst doing this?
I did. I had a full-time job for the first 2 years of Y7.
A full-time job and a side hustle?
Yes.
Okay, so wow, okay. A lot of people can definitely relate to this when they're building a company, and then they have to time it so that when they finally take the jump over to their own baby, and be consistent with it. So we'll talk about that moment when you did that.
Yeah.
But let's start with the reason why you started Y7. So was it just all of a sudden you did a training course?
We've done everything completely backwards. If you look at kind of a traditional trajectory for, starting a company and things like that. But I love what yoga stands for. And I love the idea of the mind-body connection. I think it's so important. I think everything's really intertwined. And as I was in sort of my early mid-20s, I started trying out a lot of different studios around the city, and I could not find one that I liked. I would go to one studio and I'd find a teacher. I was like, oh, this is my girl, this is my class. And it'd be Tuesday at 6:30, and I was like, this is the thing I'm going to do every Tuesday at 6:30. I'd go back the next week. It was a completely different teacher and a completely different class. So for me, that was confusing. There was no one there was no real schedules. There was nothing that was like, I felt that it was lacking a consistency in terms of what I could get. And then, you finally find your teacher, your class, and then all of a sudden she's teaching at 9:30 on a Wednesday. It's like, I have a job. Yeah. So that's not going to work. That was really what kind of I thought was lacking in the industry, was more of a consistent place to practice where you knew what you were going to get, you knew you were going to move, that you were going to flow, and that you didn't necessarily have to go to the gym after. And that's what I wanted. I wanted efficiency. I wanted to have fun. I would get really bored sometimes in classes. I'd go thinking I was going to work out, and then it ended up being a restorative class where I was covered in blankets.
What?
I was like, no. I was like, I'm tired now. I was like, I go 7 a.m. I'm like, but now I want to go back to bed when I thought I was going to get something else. So that was really hard for me. And then there were a lot of studios that have all these different levels. I was like, how do I know when to go to the next level? What level am I? Do I know enough? There was some that were a little preachy, and I really just wanted to move my body how I wanted it. I wanted to listen to great music, and that's where Y7 came from. So,
okay, this is really funny because you could have been the only person wanting all those things.
I thought I was.
Yeah, you created a company out of it. I think that's great. So all of a sudden you said that there was a timing was off, the style of class wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
And so did you just click and go, I'm all of a sudden going to do it? Or was there always the keenness of, as you're going up, to open up something in wellness and Y7?
No, I'm not really what I would call a super wellness gal. Okay. I like to work out so I can eat and drink more.
That's cool. I love that. And I think that I think that's awesome, because we do have people, I'm in this industry, so I'm probably on the extreme. I'll be honest. I've got a morning routine. I eat, everything's got to be tasty, but I know what I eat just because of what I do for a living is going to be nourishing and awesome. Mm-hmm. But I sweat not because of the physical side, for the mental side. It just so happens that I sweat a lot. And I've done this for many years. For someone like yourself who's probably done the same, but to actually go, I'm not like someone's going to preach, the whole health and wellness thing completely straight and narrow. I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I think that's a motivating aspect that so many of us can pick up.
Yeah, and I think everyone's wellness journey is different.
Sure.
And I think there are always going to be places who will tell you what to do. This is the way to do it. This is,
Yeah, definitely.
This is the only way. No, this is the only way. There's so many different dietary theories. There's so many different theories on how to live, when to eat, when to drink, when to have your last meal, when to have your first meal. There's all these things. And what I wanted to create was this space where our clients could feel like it was just them on their mats. It is their workout. There's no mirrors. It's dark. It's candlelit. That is just your time to be with yourself and move the way you want to.
Yeah.
And it's just, everything's a gentle guidance. And, everyone's, you go outside, there's ads everywhere. You're listening to a podcast, there's ads, that's how the world works. But it's for that hour, it's just you, and that's it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Key takeaways I'm looking at is you essentially, you talked about the physical things you did within the brand, but the purpose of which you wanted to create the community of the brand around. I think we all look at when we starting something, the brand is so important. But you relate the brand to the community you wanted to help support. So that's a huge takeaway. Let's actually talk quickly before we continue on from your story. I actually want to just give you my personal experience of Y7. I think this is something that... this is really cool actually. So I am, as I was telling you, I am the kind of hardcore kind of sweat person. I'll handstands.
Oh, you're intense?
Yeah, I'm a little bit intense. CrossFit, all that kind of stuff. Love pain, love sweat, all that. So I am really big on recovery, but an aspect of recovery I definitely lacked was mobility, and that just time to kind of sit still. And yoga is obviously seen as one of those really good foundations for that. I just couldn't do it. For the same reason I felt bored, I can't sit still. I just can't. And me not being able to sweat and I meditate, but it's very hard for me to do it for like an hour, right?
Yeah.
So when I was, introduced to Y7, this is before I met you, and it's just down the road of Charlie Street here in Soho, Chase, who was there, and the manager at the time said, mate, come to do a class. And I walked in, and as you said, dark room, candle lit. I'm like, okay, this is a bit different. No mirrors. No one can see you really. And it starts out in a pretty, I guess, it's not as if it's like vastly different from yoga at the start, from something you go, oh, this is, if a typical yogi would come in, which is cool because it relates to everyone at the start. But as you grow and build into the actual movement, I was sweating. So like, and it's not just playing soothing music, we're playing rap music, we're like, we're getting into it. I felt like I was in like how do I put this? A CrossFit / yoga session. Because I was doing like all these different movements that were really challenging me. And the challenge is what I need stimulation for. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely challenged doing typical yoga, but from Y7, I genuinely felt like this, if there was to be a yoga session I would genuinely go to, for all the people who struggle to have that moment of, if I'm going to do yoga, I find it hard to sit still, this is the one for you. And I'll be passionate, like, you're not paying me to say this, I'm 100% like...
I promise.
No, this is the one yoga session that I could 100% guarantee anyone who doesn't do yoga for that reason that I don't is the perfect solution for you. And I think you guys have done a remarkable brand opportunity in just penetrating an area where people initially felt, I guess, a bit barrier to the entry into it.
Absolutely.
You made it so much more relatable.
And that's one of our main missions, is to break down that traditional barrier that, people see when they hear yoga. The reason why people are like, oh, like, I don't do yoga because I'm not flexible. That's the hands down the biggest reason people have for not going. But I think what needs to shift is you don't go into that space being flexible. You become flexible from practicing and going. It's not a prerequisite, right? But the way that it's been formed in our society and culture, people think that you have to look and be a certain way in order to enter that space. And that's just not true.
I couldn't agree more. And when it comes to building a business, this is not, your typical motivator, but when you sit here and say, we looked at opportunities to break down barriers, that's a massive action we can all look at when we're building anything within ourselves. Yeah. There's so many barriers, right? So you think about the problems you come against, the reasons why things aren't working, there's a barrier there. So you came across the reason why people initially don't enter that space.
Right.
And you just kind of executed.
And those are reasons I didn't enter the space. I was like, I don't want to. Every time I stared at myself in yoga class, I was like, good Lord. I was like, close your mouth. Why do you look constipated? What are you doing? Stop furrowing your brow. You're
So you second guess yourself just by perception.
And that is when those thoughts start to run through your head, it takes away from what you're supposed to be focusing on. Sure. Right? Sure. Which is how you're feeling.
Sure. 100%. So, as I said, if you are having that barrier to entry because of those reasons I've previously mentioned, definitely give Y7 a go. And with that, I want to go back to how you actually transitioned, the transition point. So people thinking, they may be having a little side hustle, building a product, they could be doing in the backyard of their house, or whatever it is, and they're still doing their full-time job, Monday to Friday, come home, have all those issues. Tell me about that moment where you were like, okay, I'm gonna now jump. Was it were you making enough money for that to happen, or you're like, okay, I'm a barrier for me to make more money at Y7 was that I'm not there enough?
So it was a little bit of both. I think there was, I had no idea that anybody felt the same way about yoga that I did. I had no clue. I was like, is it me? I'm crazy.
Well, I mean, you and I are definitely unique in our own ways, right?
For sure.
There's a reason why we open up weird things in New York City.
Absolutely. And so for me, it was sort of I didn't know really if this was a viable business.
Yep.
And as someone who has never owned a business, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have anything. But I started to realize as we opened our third location, which was Flatiron, I couldn't do it. I couldn't train the front desk how I wanted them. I couldn't I couldn't be there. I couldn't see everything. And like the experience of the studio was starting to suffer.
So hang on a second. Time out. You were 2 studios in and still not full time.
Yes.
What? How does that?
Well, okay. So
I'm trying to fathom that. Like, what does your 24 hours a day look like?
I don't know. I don't remember how. I don't know. I don't remember.
How many people did you have full time?
I blacked out.
Did you have someone full time on?
No.
So no one was full time working at Y7 in 2 studios. Where were the 2 studios?
One in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, which was close to where I lived.
Yeah.
So that was easy. And then Soho, we had a pop-up in the Monster Cycle at the time on Lafayette. And so, that one was great because, the Monster Cycle team, already had like great cleaning staff, openers, closers. So, when I showed up to check people in, that was like kind of part of the deal, right? And we would only run like a 7 a.m. and 8:15 a.m. be done. So I would go to work after I checked in the 8:15 class. And then we would have a 7 p.m. and an 8:15 p.m. So when I would get off work at 6, I would just come back to check in the 7 p.m.
Okay, we're going to hear more about this. This is a great... I don't want to take away from this excitement. We're going to cut to a quick break from here from one of our sponsors. I'm still amazed. So 2 stores, or 2 studios, I should say, and you're still working full time. You're going early in the morning and late at night, which is, I guess, pretty common for what we, do to hustle.
Yeah, I mean... it wasn't great, but it wasn't like a 5 a.m. thing, right?
Yeah.
Waking up at 6 a.m., getting there by 6:30, it was rough, but it was doable.
But then here's the interesting part, right? So you've got the operations side.
Yes.
But when you expand,
yes,
there's the brand. And you have to explain to your staff the brand because obviously if there's 2 places, you can't be 5:30 at the same place, especially when you've got a full-time job. So how did you kind of come to terms with, as you're expanding, understanding the need to, explain the brand to the team and have the time available to do that?
Yeah, I think when, obviously with, platforms like ClassPass, Yelp, and Google, and like there's so many platforms that are review-based. And so for me to read things like where people didn't understand it was heated or dark, or that there was a free flow portion of class, I was like, this is like, I got a 1-star review and it was like, it was dark, hot, and they played really loud music. I was like, yes, no, 5 stars, that's what we do. I was like, not 1. I was like, no, that's great. Like that person might, it's just like, and the studio was probably not what that person was looking for, and that's fine. But to say everything that we are about and give it 1 star, I was like, ugh. So, you hit that point where you're like, people aren't getting like what we're about, what this is for. And there was a time where everyone was like, oh, this is just, a studio trying to be really, really trendy with like being dark and sexy. I was like, no, those are actually like intentional choices based on how I was feeling in classes that were brightly lit and, really spiritual, and I wasn't really connecting with myself or the instructor or the practice. Like those were all choices that I made intentionally to, really make the studio different.
That's really interesting from a perspective of you are not going to be able to please every single person.
No, never.
But to have your brand, which you completely live by, kind of be scrutinized for what it was, but to stay consistent and adamant that that's exactly what your reason why you're doing it is. I mean, we are all coming to terms when someone comes to you and gives you feedback in the way that they did in your case, and for you to say, I believe this is still a point of difference in the marketplace. Can you explain how you kind of go about that? I reckon there's a lot of listeners there who are going to get a lot of negative feedback as they build their businesses. Right. What is it that you did that made you, firstly, mentally just go, screw it, I'm doing this. Like, you guys can cop it, this is what I'm doing. And how did you action that with your team?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from the intent, right? Like, I feel very, very strongly about the studio and the things that we do, the way our class format is. I feel really strongly about that. And we had so many times where people, like, clients who had been with us, regulars coming all the time, familiar faces, being like, you should add weights, or you should have a beginner class, or you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like, but if I add weights, how many sets of weights do I need? Does that mean I have to turn on the lights? Everyone has to go do that. It's like, I don't want to do that. And there's other studios that do that, and that's what they do. I don't want to do that. I don't necessarily care about that. I want to do what I want to do. And as far as like having different types of classes, there are so many yoga studios, especially in New York City, and I believe that there is a place for everybody, and I want to focus on what I'm bringing to the table and what I believe. And that's it. You kind of have to just get over what everybody else, is kind of throwing at you and stay your course.
Was that always your mentality, or did you kind of have to learn to kind of grow into that?
I've had so many mental breakdowns.
I mean, that's.
I have cried so many times in the last 6 years. Like, it's embarrassing, frankly. It's hard. Like, people say something negative about something that you love, that you've built, that you really believe in, and you're like, why?
You don't get it.
Like, everybody hates me. You can let that one comment get to you, but for every, listen, if you're building a business and you own a restaurant, it is so hard to get someone to write a good review.
Can I just...
Everyone only wants to write bad reviews. I'm like, can somebody say something
Oh
nice?
my gosh, yeah.
It's hard.
Can I tell you my favorite?
Yes.
This is a massive sidebar. We we got given a 1-star review because it was a Saturday, and we had it was actually, I can recite it, fantastic food, the best coffee in New York City, but it was too busy. I'm sorry. It was just there was that one, and we got a 1-star review because the food was fantastic, and we loved our smoothie, but they forgot to put a napkin inside the bag.
I mean, it's oh my gosh.
Anyway, I just find that this is the problem. This is a lesson to everyone, whether you're on social media, whatever you're building, you cannot please everyone. And there's going to be people behind a computer that, to make themselves feel better, they're going to type away at anything to make themselves negative. And I've got no problem saying that.
No, and I think what we've noticed too is, if anyone listening has ever been to Y7, we have a very strict late policy, as in it does not exist. If you are late, you cannot come in. But it's really because it's dark.
Yeah.
When you first enter that room, it takes you. You're like,
yeah.
Hello, where am I? So it does take a minute. We're conscious of that, and it's a practice. I don't want someone missing the warm up, because it is a fast paced class, and it's disturbing to everybody else. It's also yoga, so there's not it's not like you know what bike you are and where it is. People now have to move their mats over for you, and it's
an ordeal.
It's disturbing.
Yeah.
So we, and people get very angry when they're not let into class, and I understand, but they take it out on my staff. I have heard the nastiest things come out of people's mouths, and my director of ops or the studio manager will call the client and be like, you may not speak to our staff that way. And 99% of the time, the person is like, I'm really sorry. I was having a really shitty day, and I really needed a class, and I took it out on that person, and I'm sorry. So also having that lens of knowing how people react and what they say most of the time has more to do with them and what's going on their side than you, as the person who is at the desk or behind the counter or whatever it is.
Do you the action you're just taking with your team, is that something that part of your culture is help? Is that more for your team, or is it more to actually help the customer?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's on both ends. I think, it's people have to be held accountable for their actions. You don't just get to yell at somebody for no reason when they're just doing their job. I've been guilty of the same thing, and when there's a frustrating customer service experience or anything like that, I'm always very aware to say to the person that I may be getting loud on the phone with. I'm I'm so sorry I'm yelling. I know it's not your fault. I'm just really frustrated. It's the airline thing. It's not the customer service representative's fault that they cancel your flight, but you start yelling because you're I just want someone to take care of this for me. And I'm always conscious to be I am so sorry. I'm just so frustrated. I can't, but I know it's not your fault.
That's a really cool concept. I think it is so important that as you're building your team that you showcase, firstly, how much you care for them by doing what you've done. And then also, I wouldn't call it calling out, but you actually make it more aware to the person who actioned it, so that they actually reflect on themselves.
Totally.
I've had a couple of times where I'm actually pretty fortunate with social media that I don't get a lot of hate, but there's a couple of times recently where someone reached out to me saying something really quite nasty as a result of me posting something, of cooking something with my girlfriend, essentially. And I literally went back to him and said, hey, I've got no low self-esteem issues, so I'm fine with what you said, that's fine. Right. But are you okay? Yeah. And they came back going, like, sorry, mate, like, I've just broken up with my girlfriend, I'm going through all this tough time. Yeah. And so you actually, something what you've done, you're talking about is actually greater than just the looking after the company culture. You're actually also looking after the individual, because you help them actually come to realization. And that's huge, because for the Y7 brand, it showcases, I guess, the community and that culture that you want to build.
Yeah, and too, like, we have cameras in the studio for that reason, to let, like, at the front desk, and it's also to make sure, like, something was missing or whatnot, that too. But it's also like, my staff knows that, like, we have their back, and, like, if we need further, we had a client throw something at one of my front desk staff, and when we asked the client about it, she was like, no, I didn't. I was like, well, she's like, your front desk is lying. I was like, okay, well, you can say that, but, like, we have cameras. Yeah. And then she had nothing to say. Yeah. So, it's about protecting your staff and, having their back, knowing that they, it's hard to enforce a late policy like that. People get mad and, like, they're the ones who bear the brunt of that. Sure. And that sucks. So it's having their back, and also them knowing that, like, we will, of course, like, speak to this person, be like, listen, like, of course, like, your class is back in your account. You're welcome back anytime, but you cannot speak to our staff like that. It's just inappropriate. You can't do it.
You sound like you've built some solid policies within your business. And is that something that you've learnt, or just something as you, again, grown into? Because to have that discipline, to build that culture of what Y7 is, to then build, like, a company policy handbook, to do all these other things. Yeah, wow, that's another one. Thanks, HR. Yeah. But these are all things that, like, having policies helps, again, establish the brand. Yeah. So is that something that from the start you're with, or is this kind of like I probably need to do that kind of situation?
In terms of kind of like the late entry, like that kind of stuff, we've always had that. Sure. Just because, like, there were also times when, we didn't have front desk staff all the time, so it was me, locking the door and then going in to take class. So
for two studios,
get in, even exactly, if you wanted to. There was no one there. Yeah. But we definitely grew into a lot of the policies. And it's situational, right? Like, it's so crazy the things that have happened, or, like, you just never know until you're, like, put in that situation. You're like, oh, I guess we should have something about how to react to that, or, like, what we do when this happens, because it's just, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, like, I look at all the people that we meet in this city, and, the people that we are fortunate to meet as a result of being business owners. Everyone's the same. Everyone says, I didn't know this. It's like, there's so many things you cannot be, preparing to happen. Totally. But the people who are successful are the ones that deal with it in the right attitude and the right way. Yeah. And I think that's what we all continue to learn. Like, I'm sure that
I learn things every
day.
Are
you like a professional plumber and lighting expert and?
Thank goodness that I have an incredible director of ops who was like. She was like, I hired her. I mean, when we made our first hires, it was HR, retail, and ops, like those three. So 2016, those were my first three hires. And I was like, Alex, I do not know how to change a light bulb, please. I mean, I can, but, like, in the studio, there's, like, all wattage now and all these things. It wasn't just like, here's a light bulb from, Walgreens, and you screw it in. There's LEDs, there's certain, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a lot. Hard. You just concentrate on the brand and let other people deal with that stuff.
I'm sweating. I'm so nervous.
You're actually doing more of a workout thinking about that than you are actually doing the workout. You talked about, that moment where you jumped, but then from once you jumped, did you take on money, or did you kind of had that kind of moment?
So I left my job. We started the studio in July of 2013. Yep. I left my job in March of 2015.
Nice.
And then we decided to take on money about a year and a half later.
Great.
So fall 2016.
Great.
Is when we took on money. It was, we were gearing up to open our 6th location.
So you got to 5 on, jeez, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. It was, I mean, you know, for anyone who has been to Flatiron Union Square, we're going to redo those soon. They are not, you know, they're not as nice because we were, you know, limited in our funds. But I think what's been really cool for me to see and starting that way was knowing that the people were coming for the class experience, right?
Yeah.
They were coming for more than just a really nice shower or like shampoo, you know, amenities or whatever it is.
Of course.
People were coming for the class and what they were getting out of the class and the experience.
That's great.
And like the vibe of the studio and how it made them feel. So that just gave me, I think, even more confidence to, you know, take on money knowing that like this will just make it easier for us to sign leases and the deposits. We don't have to wait, you know, until we generate enough cash to sign the next lease.
So what you're saying here is you build such a strong trust in your existing consumers who would have a great word of mouth when time's right, that you felt confident that there wasn't the initial issue of like, oh, I wonder if we're going to get enough people through the door. That's great. Building trust is one of the best, other than the brand, is, well, you build trust by promoting the brand, but that is one of the biggest things it is in building a business. Yeah. Because if you build trust, they're going to believe you if you say, I'm opening up a $1,000 class and you get signs up just because everyone wants to do it. Obviously not to that extent, but the idea is that you build enough trust in what Y7 does that I talk about it, my friends talk about it, everyone talks about it just because it stands for what you believe in. And I think, without a doubt, I know people coming to Charlie Street from Y7 with their yoga mats and all that kind of. It's really cool.
It's awesome.
It's great.
Like, I love because it's like right on the way. It's right on the way to the train.
It's great. I point. I go Y7. They're like, yeah. And they're like proud.
Everyone's dripping sweat.
Right, but they're proud though.
Yeah.
It's like the sweat movement is real. People are no longer having to finish up and then, especially like with Charlie Street being a super casual kind of spot. I don't want people to feel like they can't just be them.
Right.
Yoga session, Y7, feel great about myself. Almost like, yeah, I did it. Now I'm walking around Soho with my mat because I feel proud that I just smashed the session.
Absolutely.
And that's the way it should be. That's awesome. So in each episode of the Epic Table, we do a dish.
Great.
Okay, so you see in front of you, you've got some frozen bananas, some coconut flakes, some spirulina, some hemp protein, some other textured goodies in granola. Do you, I know you smashed the naughty eggs.
I did.
Yeah. But have you ever had one of our smoothie bowls?
I haven't.
Okay. So we're working out what to do here today. And Don, cameraman Don was actually like, dude, like yogi, like, you know, yoga, kind of, you know, smoothies, that kind of fresh, summery vibe, healthy. They want to do their smoothie bowls. I'm like, dude, let's do a varsity blue bowl. So we're doing a varsity blue bowl today. And we'll do that. We listen to one of our sponsors and get straight into it as we get back.
Awesome.
You ready for some varsity blue action?
Of course.
Yeah? All right, sweet, let's do it. So, to a smoothie bowl, actually to any smoothie, you want to add the liquid base first. Do you know why?
No, I literally have no idea what you're
Do
talking
you cook,
about.
actually? Do you
No,
cook?
I do cook, but, you know, I try.
Yeah, well, this is a little fun
like,
fact.
listen, like, cooking is very different from, like, chefing.
I
know?
totally agree.
Like, me throwing something in a pan, I mean, I don't know, it's scary.
Can I interrupt you just quickly to say that I know exactly what you're coming at, and as much as I'm a chef, I chef like a cook. Okay. Reason being is that, like, you see chefs, when I used to work in my kitchens of like, you know, yes chef, you have your pans, everything laid out, perfectly aligned. Everything is, I don't do that when I get home. I don't like bring out a sheet pan and then put a grate on top and then have my salamander and my tongs aligned and then all my tea towels like perfectly, you know, squared off, and I'm like waiting for my docket to come out. No. I simply have everything spread out, just cruising around, you know, just kind of like, you know, you can kind of like almost have the hip movement and the salsa in the hands.
Little dance?
Yeah, little dance.
All right.
It's cruisy. So do not be intimidated by the fact that you stand or sit before me.
Right.
So coconut milk goes in first, like any other liquid base, because that allows the blade to get around all the different solid ingredients.
That makes so much sense.
I know. Everyone at home is just going to go, so does that mean I don't have to spend an extra 30 seconds
shaking the blender, like just trying to move some stuff around?
Right? Yeah, so that's pretty much how it is. In goes our frozen bananas. Now, team, for those playing at home, you If you're going to have one thing in your freezer at all times, it is frozen banana. One, it makes the easiest and best and probably healthiest ice cream you'll ever have.
I'm going to interrupt you for a tip.
Oh, wow.
I agree. Don't forget to peel the bananas first.
Now, please go on. What is it like to have a whole banana in your freezer?
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
not great. Makes no sense. So as someone who has frozen whole bananas unpeeled, don't do that. It doesn't work that way.
You can always actually time yourself. So do this. So go into the freezer, put in a peeled banana and a not peeled banana, and then see the amount of time it takes you to get to to peel off, to get to the flesh of the banana for that one that you kept whole. Fantastic.
So just wanted to add that in there for those
Pro tip
for those who need a little bit more detail.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so into that we're just going to add in our blue spirulina and some hemp protein as well. We choose hemp because at Charlie Street we are all vegan based.
Mm-hmm.
You can add proteins that are got some for omnivores. But yeah, inside that we're just going to go blue spirulina, hemp protein, and that's it. So you've got 4 ingredients in there. Just give that a blitz. And then on top, you just decorate. It is that simple. This can be your new go-to, whether at home, with some family, some friends. It's also the amount of liquid you have determines the thickness you have to your smoothie bowl. We like them, particularly with the coconut milk, to be, oh, look at that. Is that not just sexy?
Do you do this professionally?
Sometimes.
You should maybe open a cafe.
I reckon I could potentially do that. Maybe. It depends on the day. In go our granola, just like that. And the granola we make in-house. And I think, honestly, granola is one of the easiest snacks you can create. Oats, any nuts you want, any form of sweetener, in the oven, done.
Love it.
So simple. So we've got some texture on one side of our beautiful spirulina varsity blue bowl. Then we're going to add in our coconut little shavings. Just going to go a nice long line. And I think one of the coolest things is you see across Instagram the ability for everything to be just colourful, segmented. It does pretty well, right?
Yeah.
And then this is a fun fact. I found out about 2 seconds before we started. We usually have an email telling all our guests here on the podcast, are you allergic to anything? So they kind of slipped through the cracks in that one because Sarah rocks up and just sees this container full of kiwi fruit. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, guys, I'm allergic to kiwi fruit.
Well, I didn't want us to get to this point and be like, here, have a bite. And me be like, no. Immediately goes into anaphylactic shock and to the hospital. So
let's avoid that, shall we?
Yeah. Not today.
So we swapped out the kiwi fruit, which we usually have, for just fresh, beautiful base bananas. No, do not. I'd rather. I personally don't feel like going to the hospital today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put our bananas on top, and that's it, guys. So you can just kind of decorate. I always say decorate with texture on top of the smoothie bowl because it allows you to kind of get that crunch going. But that's it. You got blue, you got banana, you got coconut flakes, and a granola. Looks really tasty. Go to YouTube if you want to see the final dish of that, or come into Charlie Street. Sarah will be serving this up at some point on a cameo appearance for sure.
I'll be behind the counter.
Yeah, after a nice effort at Y7. Let's talk about going back to your growth of Y7 for a second.
Yeah.
So you took on money,
yes.
And then all of a sudden like that, you've gone to 14 stores.
Yes.
What's the difference in your day-to-day from going from even 3 to 4 studios to 14?
Yeah, I think the major difference that I've noticed as we've continued to grow is that, I don't know everybody anymore.
How many staff do you have?
So in total, we have over 300 employees.
You have 300 employees.
Yeah, and then that goes between, our studio managers, our teaching team, our front desk staff, my leadership team. So, all different types of employees, but there's a little over 300 of us.
That's a lot of babies.
Yeah.
Because what happens...
A lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids. Because when you build a business and you are, I guess, the chief epic officer, you ultimately become mum and dad.
Yes.
And so no matter what, everyone just feels like, oh, mum will take care of that. And so they come to you no matter what.
Yeah, and I think what I realized, it's been increasingly important to always explain the why.
Yeah.
Every decision that gets made, if it's at the corporate level, at the studio level, if you're not letting people know why, it's not going to connect with them.
So why the Y7? Sorry, I just felt like that was a dad joke.
Is that just a line in there?
Go back to what you're saying. So I had to say that in I swear
it was so bad. It was good.
I know. Everyone's going to be on their AirPods just going, oh, Dan.
Oh, Dan, why
Oh,
you
no,
do
he
this
went there. I haven't got any form of child, so I promise I'm not even a dad yet. Go on.
Yeah, so it's, if we're changing a policy, if we're updating a policy, if we're deciding to include mat and towel, if we change how we're cleaning the studios, whatever it is, or language that we're using when, we're showing someone around the studio the first time, everything. Always explain the why.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's a really good tip.
Because it helps people understand. So then if it's two front desk staff and one of them is newer and another one says like, oh, we used to do it this way, but now we do it this way, but can't tell them why, it's going to be harder to kind of land the concept or whatever it is.
Totally.
So
really important. That's huge.
Yeah.
And from you now, like what you're doing today versus how to put it? You are looking after 300 kids, 14 studios.
Yes.
Do you still enjoy it like you were when you were doing it with, maybe 20 people and 2 studios?
I enjoy it more.
That's great.
Now.
That's really
because
cool.
I think I have the support of a team, and I'm the first person to volunteer what I don't know.
Yep.
And the first person to step back and let the person who does know what they're doing take the lead on whatever project or task that is. So for me, it's been a lot less pressure having to, do the things that I don't know if I'm doing them right. So even if I am doing something, it's nice to know that I can ask someone. If I'm looking at financials, before I would just look at them and, kind of nod at myself or whoever else, like, numbers.
Sure.
But now I can ask Stephanie, who's my VP of finance, I can ask her and look at her and be like, hey, I don't quite understand what this means. Can you explain it to me? Like, I can read a basic P&L, but to understand how, to differentiate the bottom line from the top line, what's actually having a meaningful business impact, whatever it is, like, those are things that I probably could have figured out on my own, but would have taken me like a year. So knowing that I have someone to ask those questions to and who can explain them to me so I understand the business better from a holistic point has been really amazing.
Yeah, so this is a 2-part question. First part of the question is you sound like the kind of leader that obviously very good at delegating. You know your strengths, your weaknesses. Did you, before you delegate, do you understand it first so you can still kind of talk about it? Or do you kind of like go, you know what, that is definitely not my wheelhouse, no matter what, I'm not going to do anything. Please, Stephanie, take care of it.
No, I try and understand it. I think, depending on the situation, there are like levels of detail that like, I don't want to know about. I'm not going to understand them. I'm not going to remember exactly what you're saying to me.
Sure.
But I always want to have a general sense of how the business is performing. Especially looking at seasonality, we're a big seasonal, company. We see, when the holidays hit, it's like, 30% of our clients are gone because they're traveling back home or whatever it is. So for me to be able to look at those things and have a general understanding of the business and to be able to make decisions based on that has been really important.
Know your numbers.
But do I need to look into, the direct EBITDA? No.
Yeah.
That's...
How good's the word EBITDA, by the way?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm still earnings before.
Can I just say, Kieran, our CFO here, he sits in a meeting and he'll just drop acronyms.
Oh yeah, all the time. I'm like,
just shoot from the hip. He's like, have you heard of AGRA and all these kind of... I'm just like, bro, do you know what...
Looking at the KPIs and how they affect the EBITDA this month. I'm like, oh wow.
I'm like, you know what, dude, go down to the kitchen, get me a microplane.
Yeah.
It's
like, I'm just gonna go over here.
Yeah, exactly. No, I knowing your numbers is crucial to your business.
Absolutely.
Not because you need to make an effect on them directly, but for you to then know, okay, maybe around a branding aspect, I can think, okay, around holidays, I can think of something else to do that would increase numbers.
Exactly.
And so that is 100% crucial. So the second part of the question is, are you 100% the creative? Like, do you feel like you are the creative side of the... By the way, as I do this, I'm doing a massive quarter pie chart in my demonstrate. If you
I'm more of a concept gal.
Okay.
So I don't know how to work Photoshop. I don't know how to work Illustrator. I'm very bad at that.
Sure.
But I'm a big, I want to sit down and talk about the stuff.
You're
I have this idea.
Stuff done.
Yeah, I was like, I want to do this. We need to do this.
Yep.
And then I have Rox from my marketing team who'll be like, that's great. This is how we're going to message it so it makes sense to people and it's not, you saying you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know?
100%.
And then we have Madison, who's our digital and social content coordinator, and she's the one translating that. She's, one with the youth, making sure we're staying like relevant and relatable. And, from where I sit, it's always making sure that in the landscape of fitness, our goals that we want as a yoga studio, how we're remaining relatable to the client at every stage in their journey with Y7.
That's really interesting.
And that's why I don't teach. I can. I'm certified. I did my trainings, but I have chosen to stay on the side of the client because I am the client, and I never ever want to lose that lens. So that's kind of where I sit on the creative side.
I think you just completely summarized in a perfect way how important you are to this business and why it is successful. So nice. No, it's really it's so funny. You talk to leaders and the CEOs of each company, and you've definitely got your bureaucratic ones, you've got your ones that are creative. You've just completely shown why the success of Y7 is the way it is. You put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. Right. And from there, you continue to do everything every single day that would be related to them. If you know who your customer is, you know how to help provide for them, give them what they would like, right. And you do that every single day, and that's your role within the business. Yeah. And that is huge. And for someone as a CEO to do that, that's awesome. Because, and over time, your role will change.
Absolutely.
Because, you've gone from when you're the first person locking and closing that door to now having 14 studios and having a bit more of a team to help delegate and know, you go from 14 to, how many do you want to get to? How many studios?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I don't really have a time. There's not like a strict timeline, but I think I look more in cities.
Sure.
So that's how I look. I would love to be Chicago, Philly, DC, Boston, San Francisco, more in LA, San Diego, Austin, Seattle, Portland.
So you want to capture New York? You want to capture North America in general?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. That's fantastic.
Yes.
And as you grow to say 100 stores, right? The difference between 15, there's a difference between 0 to 15. There's another difference between 15 to 100, and your role will change. And are you okay for that? Are you? Yeah, great, awesome. That's fantastic. So how about this? What is your weakness as a leader?
Oh, I'm really working on this. I am very reactive.
Sure.
So, if something happens or something doesn't get done, I'm we have to fix it now.
Yep.
Where I'm really kind of working on let's look more at why it happened, what we can do so it doesn't happen again, but understanding how we got to that point and how we can avoid it in the future, right? Yeah. Because I think something I've learned is that and I don't know why I just said this is something I've learned because it's just a fact. We can't go back in time.
Wow.
Right?
You haven't learned that?
Novel.
Oh, I'm still
So something I've learned is that we can't go back in time. So we can't spend energy there, right? We can't spend energy in the past. We can look at it, understand what went wrong, and put things, action items in place so that it doesn't happen again.
Definitely.
And that's it.
Definitely.
And so instead of me being whose fault is this? Why did it happen? And we're going to be okay, it is, yes, someone may have done something wrong at some point, but why? Where did we miss?
What's the root problem?
Right. Where is it stemming from?
Yeah.
Was it not explained correctly? Was the verbiage not right? Whatever it is, if it's a policy or if it's, I don't know it could be anything, but to have the ability to step back and look at everything in a way that's not also going to freak everybody else out. When I'm on a tear, they're please stay away from Sarah. Yeah. She's being a psychopath. Everyone's let's not tell her about this because she's going to have a freak out. I don't want to be that person, I want my team, no matter what it is, to be able to come to me and be hey, I screwed up. And I want to figure out how, why, and being able to look at it too, it's do we need some extra support? Do we need to hire a new role to look at, an accounts payable or whatever it is? What is it that's missing? So
that's great. Go back to your original point of the why.
Yeah.
You, in a business, we forget to ask the root problem question. We ask questions, we just don't ask the right one sometimes.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Really common. Why are we not getting enough customers? Well, it's because the product's not good. Well, why is the product not good? Right. If you continue to ask that why, that's a great one for people to actually sit down and look at. Okay, if you were a food, a recipe, let's say this, if you were a food, a meal, an item, an ingredient, what would Sarah be and why?
I am pizza.
Oh, that makes actually so much sense. That makes so much sense. Why?
Did you think that was going to be so easy for me to answer? Because what a great question. I did not know that was coming at me, but I am pizza.
Why, Sarah? Why? 7. Just
Besides the fact that I really truly love it, I believe it has, I have everything that you love. I have cheese, a little bread. There's some protein on there if you want. So it's like a pepperoni.
Yeah.
There's something, there's tangy with the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Depending on your mood, you can add different toppings.
So can you have different moods depending on the time of day you are?
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes you want a cheese, sometimes you want a square. I don't know. I could be so many things.
There's so many things Sarah can be. That's why she's in pizza. That's why I love this question, because it actually really invokes anyone's personality within the answer.
Yeah, the pizza.
That's great. And so with you have a morning routine, surely, right? Do you have something you do every day that's, somewhat structured?
I mean, I'll tell you, I always brush my teeth.
That's great. Is
Thank you.
that a moment of you looking in the mirror and just going, this is great. It's my moment to myself and brushing my teeth.
So I have a tough time with this, anytime someone's like, we'd love to know your morning routine, successful people. I'm like, oh, I get kind of choked up because I hate waking up. I am a horrible morning person. You can ask my parents, ask my husband, I'm awful.
I'm so glad I left you alone to your friend this morning when you came into Charlie
No,
Street.
that wasn't even first thing. The first 10 minutes of me being awake is
Are you like Cousin It, where the hair's over the face?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big time.
It's not pretty.
Sure.
So for me, it's I wait till the last possible moment to get out of bed.
Okay.
I want so badly to be the person who, say I have an 8 a.m. yoga class to get to. I want to be the person who wakes up at 6:30, has time to have coffee, do some things around the house maybe, get my life together. If I'm have yoga clothes, that I'm wearing a class, I have my other clothes with me. I feel really good about my day. Nope, never happened. Not once.
Not happening.
Nope.
Yet you opened up studios before you had a full-time job. And
yes, no, I realize how confusing that sounds, but again.
Pizza, everybody. Yeah, pizza.
Pizza's also, it's when you get it, it looks very clean and structured, but then you take a bite, the cheese could slide off if it's too hot. You never know.
You are making the perfect metaphor for who you are in this pizza analogy.
And this is just coming to me right now.
This is great. That's awesome. So let's give a quick plug to Y7, shall we?
Sure.
So as I said earlier, guys, is the biggest change in my lifestyle when it comes to a yoga opportunity. So where can we find out more about Y7?
You can find out more about Y7 at y7-studio.com. We have 10 locations in the city, soon to be 11.
Park Slope, what up?
Park Slope, which is number 14 overall. We have 2 locations in Los Angeles, and we actually have a location on the Nike campus.
What?
Oh yeah, that's our secret.
It'd be better if it was Under Armour, just saying, but we won't go into that. That's cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And more to come, hopefully.
Of course. And you can follow Sarah herself as well on
Instagram at Sarah SARAH_Ayako AYAKO.
Baller. That's awesome.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Oh, it's my middle name.
Yeah.
I'm half Japanese, so.
Yeah, we'll take it. Let's finish this question with, I want to quickly ask as well what Y7 does in not-for-profits. So
yeah.
Let's touch on that.
So we have recently started a charity called Freedom to Flow, where we really focus on the education and how yoga can benefit people in sort of traumatic or tough situations. So what happened to me is that I was actually speaking to a group of 7-year-olds at a charter school up in Harlem, and my lead-in was, who knows what yoga is? Had a little boy raise his hand, and I asked him to tell me what it was, and he said, I do my yoga breathing so I don't punch my brother in the face when he annoys me. And that for me was the most real life application of what yoga can do for you.
Wow.
When you're in a moment of heat or anger or frustration or sadness, you take your yoga breath. And for me to be able to give that to children or, anyone who's sort of in a tough situation, I think if everyone had that ability to harness that breath and that practice, we would be in a completely different place.
That's huge.
Right?
That's huge. That's like a pure example of that.
Yeah. Like the purest example of yoga, and I was like, my mind is blown.
You're like this kid, this 7-year-old kid, and you're like, gawking.
I was like, that's what I'm going to do when I'm upset now. Duh.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, right?
Little fist bump. Okay, my final question. What does health and wellness mean to you? And I ask this quite excitedly because you clearly have quite a free perspective on it. And I love that. I think it's so real. Probably one of the most real answers I'm about to experience among anyone I have. Because obviously, as I said, in that health and wellness space, pure example, you said pizza. So what does it mean to you?
To me, it means happiness. I think that when we are healthy and when we are feeling well and those things are in balance, we are just happy. We don't even know that we're doing things to do health and wellness. We just are.
You just completely summated what I always say.
That's it. Like,
how come we don't hang out more?
I don't know. I mean, we just met this morning. So
I know,
like,
true.
Easy. Hello.
Do we just become best friends?
I think so.
Bunk bed time. No, I'm kidding. Awesome. I think that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I just, for so many different reasons, health, unfortunately, has gone a path where it's very specific and niche, and I think it needs to be much more humane. And when we start to think about it from a happy perspective, and that's ultimately an indicator of who we are.
Right.
You know, and I think you are absolutely killing life.
Thank you.
I know there's so many struggles that, continue to happen when you're opening a business, but at the end of the day, you've opened 14 studios off the back of a brand that you started. So you can reflect at moments of your time, but just saying as someone in my position, I admire what you're doing. It's sometimes awesome to have it, and I think what you're doing is incredible. And I know the listeners are going to listen and go, oh, this chick's epic. Irrespective of what she's doing, her energy is awesome. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for enjoying Naughty Eggs at Charlie Street before being here. And of course, thank you for about to enjoy a Varsity Blue Bowl team. Make sure you hit up Sarah. Make sure you go to a Y7 class. Tell them Dan sent you. And of course, if you need any more information, make sure you hit up Sarah on Instagram, which was Sarah_Ayaka. Team, as always, I'll catch you next week for another epic podcast episode. If you want to leave a comment, if you want to leave a review, give us a like and hit subscribe. It only takes a couple of minutes, and share it with your friends. Make sure you screenshot the photo of us, which is going to look really awesome on the podcast episode hangout section. But thanks again, guys. Catch you soon. Bye.